Wesley Morgan didn't look like a man with power, not in that moment. He had on an old Green Bay Packers hoodie, jeans slightly faded at the knees, and a cap pulled low enough to hide his face. No one noticed the clean shave that replaced his usual boardroom beard. No one knew the man standing in line with a plastic tray and a quiet stance was the CEO of the entire buffet chain. That was the point. He came in as Frank, booked through a third-party customer experience app, just like any other mystery diner. It was something he did now and then to get a real look, unfiltered, raw, human. Store 13 in East Columbus wasn't making headlines. No wild complaints, no glowing praise, just average. And lately, the numbers were dipping. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to make him uneasy. It had been years since he'd stepped foot inside this one. Most of the current staff didn't even know what he looked like. He hadn't even reached the buffet line yet when it happened. "What do you mean he's asking for leftovers? This ain't a soup kitchen," a voice snapped from behind the sneeze guard. Wesley's steps halted. The man speaking wore a white apron and a paper hat too large for his head. He hadn't seen Wesley yet. "Now you want food, you pay like everyone else," the man continued sharply. Wesley's eyes shifted to where the tension was coming from. A thin man stood off to the side near the cash register. Maybe mid-50s, weathered coat, face drawn in from too many skipped meals. He wasn't yelling, wasn't begging, just there, quiet, still. He mumbled something, but the words were lost in the hum of the soda machine and clatter of trays. "I don't care if you're hungry," the employee went on louder. "Go to a shelter or something. You're creeping people out." Wesley's jaw clenched. A few customers pretended not to notice. A couple looked away. One young woman with tight curls working the salad bar paused, her eyes narrowing. Her name tag read Whitney F. She looked at the man, then at the employee, Eric, according to the apron scribble. She reached under the counter, grabbed a small plate, quietly loaded a scoop of mashed potatoes, green beans, a roll, and walked it over. "Here," she said softly, "just don't tell anyone I gave you this, okay?" The man's hands shook slightly as he took the plate. "Thank you," he whispered. Eric scoffed loud enough to make sure everyone heard. "You serious, Whitney? You gonna feed every stray now?" She didn't flinch. "He's a person, Eric." That was it. No yelling, no lecture, just a truth laid bare like a clean knife. Wesley stepped forward and handed his dinner ticket to the cashier. "One for the dinner buffet," he said, keeping his voice calm. The cashier barely looked up, 17 even. He paid in cash, took his tray, and moved slowly along the food line. He watched Eric slam trays around, making a show of irritation. He watched Whitney return to her station. And he watched the hungry man carry his small plate to a distant corner table and eat with his head down, like shame itself was sitting beside him. Wesley found a table near the back, his eyes on everything and everyone. He didn't touch his food. 15 minutes later, he got up, wandered over to the drink station near Whitney, and pretended to fill a cup. "Hey," he said casually, "that guy you helped, does that happen a lot?" She glanced at him, unsure. "Sometimes. He's come by before. Doesn't ask for much." "Management okay with it?" She gave a tight, diplomatic smile. "Management doesn't really care unless someone complains." "You ever get in trouble for helping?" Eric told the manager once, "I got a verbal warning," whatever that means. Wesley nodded. "You always help people like that?" She looked down. "If I can." He paused, then said, "Thanks. That was decent of you." She blinked. "Thanks." Wesley walked out the front door into the cold, early evening air. The neon sign above the buffet flickered slightly. The paint on the door frame was peeling. The tile at the entryway cracked. Nothing disastrous, but enough to say, "We stopped caring." He pulled out his phone and dialed. "Hey, this is Wes. I need a manager meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. Store 13. I saw something tonight that we need to talk about." He hung up. Through the window, Eric was leaning against the counter with his phone. Whitney was wiping down her station. The man with the plate was gone. Wesley had seen enough. And tomorrow, they will see him too. The next morning, Wesley arrived before the restaurant opened. The parking lot was nearly empty, just a few scattered cars resting on a patchy, cracked asphalt lot. The air had that dry, bitter chill that made your lungs tighten. He parked around the side, out of view, and used a spare key fob from years ago to enter through the employee entrance. He hadn't done that in a while. Not since the early days when he was scrubbing grease traps himself. Inside, the kitchen buzzed with the low, sleepy rhythm of morning prep. A young cook chopped onions with earbuds in, the dishwasher loaded trays without looking up. Two servers leaned against a counter with folded aprons, scrolling on their phones. Wesley didn't say anything. He just walked past them, through the prep line, and into the break room. A few seconds later, the store manager walked in with a clipboard in one hand and a coffee cup in the other. She nearly dropped both when she saw him. "Oh, Mr. Morgan." "Christina," he said flatly, "you and I need to talk." She straightened instantly. "Of course. Should I call the district manager?" "No, already spoke to him. This starts here." They walked out to the dining area. Chairs still stacked on tables, the smell of bleach fighting with yesterday's fried chicken. He pointed at a booth near the window. She sat without a word. "I was here last night," he said. She blinked. "Last night? As a customer?" "I came in under another name, sat in the back, watched." Her hands tensed around the edge of her clipboard. "There's a reason this store is slipping," he continued. "It's not the food. It's the culture. It's what you allow to happen under your leadership. Sir, I run a tight ship. We follow all protocols. Protocols didn't stop one of your employees from humiliating a man in need." The color left her face. He didn't yell, didn't demand anything, just stood there hoping someone might have enough decency to give him a plate. And instead, he got mocked, loudly, publicly. She looked down. "I didn't know." "No, you didn't, because you weren't on the floor. You were in the back, again, like always, letting someone like Eric set the tone for your restaurant." Her eyes snapped up. "Eric's not a manager. He doesn't need a title. People follow him because nobody stops him." She hesitated. "He's been here a long time, trains new hires, covers shifts, handles rushes. And that gives him the right to decide who deserves dignity?" She had no answer. "I want him gone," Wesley said. She looked stunned. "You're terminating him?" Without hesitation. Christina nodded slowly. "Understood." Wesley stood. "Bring in the rest of the staff. Now." Within minutes, everyone was gathered in the dining area. Whitney stood off to the side, arms lightly crossed, eyes drifting toward Wesley with quiet curiosity. Eric strolled in last, yawning, still in the same apron as the night before. Wesley stepped forward. No podium, no speech, just his voice, low and steady. "My name is Wesley Morgan. I own this company. Some of you may have heard of me. Some of you probably haven't. That's on me." A few exchanged quick glances. "I built this business from the ground up. I've cleaned fryers, scrubbed toilets, closed down stores alone on Friday nights. I did it because I believed this place could be something worth building." He paused. "Last night, I saw something that tore that belief apart." He told them about the hungry man, the cruelty, the kindness that followed, how one person dehumanized and another quietly restored. Eric shifted, arms crossed. "One of you stepped up. The rest watched or looked away. And the one who thought he could speak for this company, without permission?" Wesley looked straight at Eric. Eric straightened. "With all due respect, I didn't know who the guy was. We get people like that all the time. If we feed one—" "You're done," Wesley interrupted. "What?" "You're no longer employed here. You can collect your things and leave now." "You can't be serious. I bring in most of the weekend crew. I cover 5 closings. And none of that gives you the right to dehumanize someone. You're not a leader, you're a liability." Eric's face turned red. "This is ridiculous." "I'm not debating this. Christina will process your termination. Leave your key card." He waited. No one spoke. Eric finally tossed his card onto a table and stormed out the back. Wesley turned to the team. "I'm not here to scare anyone. I'm here to fix what's broken. That starts now, with accountability." He looked at Whitney. "You did the right thing. No drama, no spotlight. That matters. Starting today, you're lead server. We'll talk about assistant management soon." Whitney blinked. Thank you." Wesley faced the room again. "No more shortcuts, no more looking away. If someone needs help, we help. If someone disrespects a customer or coworker, they're out." The doors opened to the slow trickle of early customers. Morning regulars came in, same as always. Mostly seniors, a few couples with quiet voices and habits carved from routine. But inside, something felt different. The air wasn't heavy anymore. It wasn't tense either. It was something in between, like everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. Wesley didn't hover. He didn't bark orders or make speeches. He sat back and watched, carefully. Whitney moved with quiet precision. She greeted customers with a steady smile, helped a few young servers straighten their aprons, and gently nudged one toward the register when he looked lost. When a kid forgot the code to ring in a combo meal, Whitney leaned over, whispered it, and gave a small nod. No scolding, no drama, just calm presence. She wasn't bossing anyone around, but somehow things clicked better when she was in the room. Wesley noticed. He also noticed what wasn't working. Christina barely left the back office. She spent most of the lunch prep reviewing spreadsheets, shift charts, and vendor invoices. He found her once standing in dry storage, scribbling notes on a clipboard. "You're going to need to hire differently," he told her, low and even. She looked up. "We've had a hard time getting applicants." "Then stop hiring for speed. Start hiring for values. I'd take one Whitney over 5 fast hands with no heart." She rubbed her forehead. "We've had high turnover since spring. People quit without notice. Others show up for a day or two and disappear. I've been short almost every week." "Then you raise the alarm higher up." "I didn't think it'd matter," she said, her voice small. Wesley nodded slowly. "That's changing. From now on, hiring gaps go straight to regional. I'll make sure they respond. But you've got to start coaching the people you do keep. You've got 2 good ones already, Whitney and that young cook on grill, Mateo, right?" She blinked. "Mateo's solid, quiet, shows up every shift, doesn't complain. Then build around him." She nodded. "I'll schedule weekly check-ins with you. 2 months. If things don't improve, you revisit my position. Fair?" "Fair." He stepped back out onto the floor. A family of 5 walked in. 2 parents, 3 kids under 10. Whitney greeted them like she'd known them for years. She led them to a table, crouched down a bit to speak to the youngest, who looked nervous and clung to a stuffed frog. "You like chicken fingers?" she asked. The girl nodded slowly. "Well, you're in luck. We've got the best in town. You want me to show you where they are?" The girl grinned. The parents exhaled, thankful. Wesley watched from a distance. He didn't need a press release. He didn't need cameras or PR fluff. He just needed this, a human moment that proved why the place mattered. But then the next crack appeared. It started at the grill. Mateo had been on the flat top since early morning. Wesley noticed him, just for a moment, then leaned heavily on his right leg. His apron was damp, his back hunched slightly. A quiet kind of pain you only recognized if you'd felt it before. Mateo moved back to the prep counter and exhaled slow, careful, like someone trying not to show weakness. Wesley stepped over and cracked open the cooler beside him. "You've been on that line since 8. Mateo nodded without looking up. "We're short again. Jason called out. Might have quit." "You okay?" "Yeah, just tweaked my knee last week. Still healing." "You told anyone?" "Doesn't matter," Mateo said, flipping a burger. "If I don't show, there's no one back here. I'm not trying to get Whitney stuck on the grill again." Wesley stared at the uncalled tickets. "Take 10. Go sit." Mateo hesitated. "You sure?" "Go." He untied his apron and limped toward the back. Wesley pulled on gloves, tied a spare apron, and took the spatula. The grill came back to life like it remembered him. He flipped patties, called out orders, loaded fries, all muscle memory. A few heads poked through the service window, surprised to see the owner behind the line. Whitney passed by with a tray. "Didn't think I'd see the day," she said. He didn't look up. "You ever see someone limp through a shift because they're scared to ask for help?" Her face sobered. "More often than I'd like." "Then we've got bigger problems than I thought." By the time Mateo returned, the backlog was gone. Wesley handed him the spatula. Mateo blanked. "You run this place before or something?" "Something like that," Wesley said. Later, he found Christina checking inventory. He waved her toward the hallway away from the kitchen traffic. "You've got people working through injuries. Why didn't that get reported up?" She closed her clipboard. "Mateo didn't say anything until yesterday, and even then he said he was fine. He's limping. I offered to send him home. He refused, said he didn't want to mess up." It was mid-afternoon when the next issue surfaced, and Wesley almost missed it. Near the dessert bar, a woman in a crisp blazer with a clipboard in one hand and a permanent frown on her face was standing far too close to a young server. He couldn't have been more than 19. His name tag said Evan, and his ears were flushed red as the woman spoke to him in a tone that carried. "No, that's not how you refill the trays. I told you 5 times already. You're not listening." "I was just following the chart." "Then you didn't read it," she snapped, jabbing the laminated paper in her hand. "It says right here, when the tray is below half, you replace it entirely, not top it off. Now, go do it again." Wesley stepped forward quietly. "Everything all right here?" The woman turned, startled. "Oh, Mr. Morgan, I didn't realize you were still on site." "I am," he said, his tone flat. "And you are?" "Danielle Foster, corporate training consultant. I'm here for the quarterly compliance audit." Wesley gave a single nod. "I appreciate you being here, but this isn't how we train people." Danielle stiffened. "I was just making sure policies were being followed." "He's a new hire," Wesley said calmly, "not a punching bag." "I wasn't trying to humiliate him." "You raised your voice, you pointed at him, you made him feel small in front of customers. That's not training, Danielle. That's intimidation." Her lips parted like she was about to defend herself, then closed again. Wesley didn't flinch. "You'll step away from the floor for now. HR will follow up regarding your conduct." She straightened her clipboard. "Understood," she muttered, then walked briskly toward the back office. Wesley turned to Evan. "You're doing fine. If something doesn't make sense, ask Whitney or Mateo. They've got your back." Evan nodded quickly, his face still red but with a spark of relief. "Thanks." Wesley moved back toward the front of the restaurant and noticed a small girl, maybe 7 or 8, standing at the host stand, holding an empty plastic cup and looking unsure. He crouched beside her. "You okay?" She nodded, her voice a whisper. "I spilled my drink." "No big deal," he said gently. "Where's your table?" She pointed toward the far corner. Whitney was already on her way over, with a towel and a new cup in her hand. She gave the girl a reassuring smile. The little one beamed and scampered back toward her family. Wesley stood back and watched. Whitney crouched by the spill, wiped it carefully, and handed the cup to the child with a few soft words. The girl's father gave Whitney a grateful nod, and Wesley could see the tension leave his shoulders. Without making a sound, Wesley pulled out his phone and typed out a message to the regional director. "Need Whitney's personnel file. Start assistant manager onboarding next week." By late afternoon, the restaurant moved with a rhythm Wesley hadn't seen in a long time. The staff wasn't just working, they were moving like a team. Whitney managed the front with confidence. When someone got flustered at the register, she stepped in without making it a show. Mateo stayed off the grill but worked cold prep and double-checked the walk-in for expiring stock. Even Evan, now calmer, filled the dessert bar trays without any clipboard hovering over his shoulder. It wasn't perfect, but it was alive again. Wesley ducked into the office and scanned the updated staffing chart Christina had printed out.
Half the names were marked with question marks or slashes. A few had doubles stacked back to back. He picked up the phone and dialed regional. "I need 2 floaters at store 13. One for back of house, one for dining room. Pull from the flex pool. Prioritize attitude over speed." The voice on the other end hesitated. "That'll leave another site tight." "Then tell them to flag it early. I'd rather shuffle now than patch later." "Copy," came the reply. Wesley hung up, stretched his back, and walked out to the floor again. The last wave of dinner guests was trickling in. Whitney was ringing up a couple in their 60s. Mateo wiped down the prep table, his limp barely noticeable now. Evan stood behind the dessert bar, focused, relaxed. Wesley found a seat near the window and just sat for a minute. Let the clink of forks and low murmur of conversation wash over him. The hum of the soda machine, the soft thud of trays, the occasional laugh from a booth. No raised voices. No tension. The place wasn't fixed yet, not entirely. But it was healing. And, more importantly, it was finally breathing again.
The following morning, Wesley arrived early, before the lights were fully on, before the doors were unlocked. He stood in the back hallway near dry storage, arms folded, watching the new float cook fumble through his first prep batch of cornbread batter. The kid, maybe 22, 23, had quick hands and loud confidence but little follow-through. He eyeballed the measurements, sloshed in the milk without checking the ratios, then stopped and glanced over at Mateo, uncertain. Mateo, still limping slightly, stepped in quietly, no ego, and corrected the measurement without making a scene. The float cook listened, nodded, adjusted. That was enough. Willingness to learn mattered more than speed. Wesley stepped into the office. Christina had left a revised staffing chart on the desk. No more back-to-back doubles. Whitney's hours had shifted up to match her new lead role. The 2 temps were scheduled for full days. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was tight enough to breathe. He'd scheduled 3 conversations that afternoon. Short one-on-ones, no clipboards, no formal reviews. Just people talking face-to-face. The kind of conversations that kept the foundation steady before the cracks even showed. Whitney was first. She sat across from him in the break room, posture straight, eyes calm but alert. Not nervous, just watchful. "What's the worst part of your job?" Wesley asked. She didn't hesitate. "Feeling like I'm the only one who cares when something goes wrong." He nodded once. "You're not anymore." "I believe that now," she said. "Yesterday felt different. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it's different." "You still want to move into management?" "I do, but not if it means turning into someone who stops listening." "It won't," he said, "but it will mean holding the line even when no one's watching." She tilted her head slightly. "I think I already have been." "You'll start shadowing Christina next week. Payroll, scheduling, vendor calls. I want you to see what it looks like before stepping into it fully. I'll be ready. If anything starts to go sideways, staff, customers, even something above store level, you come to me directly. You've got my number now." Her eyebrows lifted. "You're giving me your number?" "I don't hand it out often, but I don't want to lose you." She didn't smile big, just nodded once, quiet, steady, like she understood what that meant. Next came Mateo. He limped in, but less than the day before. He looked uncertain, like he was waiting to be disciplined for something he didn't remember doing. "I owe you something," Wesley said. "What for?" "For not safeguarding your health. You shouldn't have felt like staying on the line was your only option. I didn't want to lose hours. You won't. We're adjusting your schedule. You'll be on cold prep and light duties until your knee's back to normal, full pay." Mateo just stared. "You don't have to do that." "I do," Wesley said. "This place only works if people are safe. If I let you burn out now, I'm setting a fire I'll have to put out later." Mateo nodded slowly. "Thanks. That means more than you probably think." Wesley leaned forward. "Once you're back to full speed, I want you paired with the training lead. You've got instincts. You don't panic, don't push blame, you adapt. That's rare." "You think I could train people?" "I think you could lead them." Mateo didn't respond, but something in his face settled, like a weight he hadn't realized he was carrying had suddenly shifted off his shoulders.
The last meeting was with Christina. She entered the break room with a binder, a folder of updated logs, and a look that said she was ready to defend herself. "Leave the papers," Wesley said. "Just talk to me." She paused, then set everything aside and sat down. "You've been here longer than most," he said. "You've seen this place through some hard seasons." "I've tried to make it work with what I had," she said. "I believe that, but trying isn't enough anymore. You've got to lead it forward, not just hold it together." She lowered her voice. "I got complacent. I stopped pushing upward when things got hard. That's changing now. I'll be checking in every 2 weeks, not to micromanage, to partner." She nodded. "I can work with that. You've got 1 quarter to stabilize staffing, reduce turnover, and build a bench. Whitney and Mateo are your first 2. Develop them." "Understood. If you can prove you can build leaders, there's a spot for someone like you in regional. The company's restructuring soon. I'm watching." Her shoulders eased slightly. Less tension, more focus. "I won't waste the chance," she said. "Then let's stop talking and get back to work." That afternoon, the rhythm on the floor was tighter. Whitney was more visible, checking in with servers, hopping on the register when it backed up, even helping the new expo temp navigate the trays without turning his confusion into a spectacle. Mateo stayed near the back, prepping coleslaw, rotating fridge stock, moving slow but sure. Late in the day, a woman came in, mid-40s, tired posture, school security badge clipped to her chest.
By the time the dinner rush ended, the difference in the room was no longer subtle. It was visible, palpable, undeniable. There were no raised voices, no trays slammed in frustration, no servers hiding in the back to cry after a scolding. Just steady movement, calm tones, and a rhythm that felt like everyone was finally pulling in the same direction. Whitney was everywhere without making it feel like she was. One moment she was helping Evan at the drink station, the next she was correcting a missed order before the customer even had to ask. Her voice stayed low, her hands always moving, her eyes constantly scanning for where she was needed most. Mateo, still moving a little slower than usual, had settled into a groove, prepping and stocking, never asking for help, but no longer hiding behind silence either. He knew someone had his back now. That alone seemed to ease the weight he carried. Christina was more visible too, not just in the office counting boxes, but actually walking the floor, checking in, listening. At one point, Wesley saw her take a young hostess aside and calmly show her how to handle a customer issue instead of just watching it unfold. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Wesley stood near the register, coat in hand, ready to call it a night, when Whitney wiped down the front counter and glanced his way. "It felt different today," she said quietly. He nodded. "That's because you made it different." She looked at him a moment longer, then said something he didn't expect. "Thanks for not just showing up to punish people. Thanks for staying long enough to help fix it." Wesley's face didn't change much, but his eyes softened. "Fixing it was the easy part," he said. "Keeping it right, that's on all of us." He stepped outside into the cool evening air. The sky was a soft blue-gray, the kind that came just after sunset. No rain, no wind, just stillness. Above the entrance, the neon sign that had flickered so miserably the night before now glowed steady, freshly repaired that morning. It was a small thing, but it mattered. Wesley paused on the sidewalk, keys in hand, and glanced once more through the glass doors. Inside, the team was finishing their clothes. Dishes stacked properly, floors mopped without being asked twice. No one on their phones, no one dragging their feet, no one shouting. Just people doing the quiet kind of work that makes a place feel alive again. He slid into his car, started the engine, and didn't look back a second time. Because he didn't need to. Inside, the closing crew locked the doors, turned off the signs, and finished their final sweep with care. Not because anyone was watching, but because it was the standard now. And that kind of standard, that kind of culture, doesn't come from fear. It comes from people deciding they matter and acting like it. The buffet wasn't just a restaurant anymore. It was a place rebuilding its soul, one small human moment at a time.